Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be continuing on with my Hellboy coverage. We're going to see what Hellboy gets up to now that he has left the BPRD. In this video I'm going to be breaking down 3 story arcs. The first one is called The Third Wish, the next one's called The Island, and then Into the Silent Sea. Alright, let's dive into it. Hellboy Omnibus Volume 2, Strange Places, Part 3. Written and art by Mike Mignola with additional art by Gianni. The storylines covered in this video will be The Third Wish, The Island, and Into the Silent Sea. Alright, time for our opening story arc, The Third Wish. At the end of our last story arc, The Conqueror Worm, Hellboy quit the BPRD, as he was disgusted by their treatment of Roger, and also Hellboy wanted to do a little self-discovery about himself. All this crown of the apocalypse, right hand of doom, flowers growing out of his blood, it's a lot to take in. The first place Hellboy wanted to travel to since leaving the BPRD is Africa. Before we join Hellboy in Africa, we first go to the bottom of the ocean. 3 mermaids that are all sisters are talking to their grandmother named the Bog Rouge. Bog Rouge is an old underwater sea witch. The 3 mermaids ask a favor of the Bog Rouge. Bog Rouge responds, "And what price will you pay?" The 3 mermaids say, "Well, tell them what she wants." The Bog Rouge answers, "Here is a nail. Drive it into the head of my enemy." We now jump over to Hellboy. Hellboy has arrived in Africa, and he joins a man named Molomi, who is a great witch doctor, thought long dead. In fact, the legend is that he died 200 years ago. They sit by a fire Molomi has made. Molomi explains to Hellboy that he knew Hellboy was coming. The Kwaku Anse, the spider, and the bats told him that Hellboy would come. They talk for a bit, but then Molomi tells Hellboy, You're tired now. You rest. You have a long way to travel yet." Hellboy's a little confused. He doesn't really want to go to sleep right now. He says, "What do you mean? I'm tired, but..." Molomi tells Hellboy, "Just sleep. I will leave my medicine to keep you safe." Hellboy then dozes off, and in his sleep he dreams. In Hellboy's dreams, he is standing in the middle of a pride of lions, and they say his name, Anyungun Rama. Lions then warn him, saying, "This is the last night you will ever sleep under the skies of Africa. Never dare to set foot or hoof here again. We will not bear it, and now we'll give you scars so you remember." A bell then rings and Hellboy wakes up. When Hellboy wakes up, he realizes that he is in another part of Africa. Now he's near the coast, near the sea. Molomi tells Hellboy, "The ocean is calling you." Hellboy, a little confused, asks, "Come again?" Molomi answers, "Yes, it is strange, but you should come and hear it for yourself." Molomi brings Hellboy to the ocean and points into the water. He says, "Now you are standing at the very crossroads of your life, and all your roads lead to strange places." Hellboy asks, "Any advice?" Molomi gives Hellboy a bell. This special bell will protect him from evil. Hellboy, he listens to the sound of the ocean, and he actually hears his name being called. Hellboy. Damn, the ocean actually is calling his name. As Hellboy is listening to the sea, a huge wave rises up, and it carries Hellboy off into the ocean. Hellboy has now been thrown into the ocean, and he is deep under the water. And then 3 mermaids come and grab him. These are the 3 mermaids we saw talking to this Bog Rouge at the beginning of this story. Hellboy and these mermaids are fighting. Hellboy tries to fend them off. That bell that Molomi gave him, eventually Hellboy loses it, and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean floor. As the mermaids continue tussling with Hellboy, they eventually manage to hammer the nail that the Bog Rouge gave them right into one of Hellboy's horns. And then Hellboy passes out. and eventually when Hellboy wakes up, he is underwater, bound in chains. Although somehow he can breathe underwater. Must be from that nail in his horn. Hellboy, seeing where he is, comments to himself, "Wow, I bet this is bad." The Bog Roosh then swims over to Hellboy and tells him, "For you, it is even worse than that, Anyungun Rama. In your shape and manner you hardly seem the monster, but we know different, you and I." Hellboy to her says, "Hey, giant talking fish, fun's fun, but I gotta go, you hear me?" The Bog Roosh replies, "Go where? What will you do? No, you will never leave here. Not so long as you wear my nail in your skull. Not so long as you are bound in those chains, Hellboy." The Bog Roosh then tells Hellboy that the chains have been built from the bones of a man that once hunted Hellboy, and that man's intense hatred for Hellboy grants them their power over him. Bog Roosh tells Hellboy, "You will never break them, such is the power of one dead madman over his murderer, and soon enough I'll deal with you. But first, where are my angels?" The three mermaid sisters rejoin their grandmother, the Bog Roosh, and they want to collect their favors from her for doing this task and bringing her Hellboy. The Bog Roosh says, "My dear ones, you have all performed your service well, and in good time. Who will be the first to have her reward?" One of the mermaid sisters says, "I am the eldest. I would have my lover return to me. He is a great hunter, but his pursuit of one certain beast has kept us apart for too long, too many years. I want him back." Bog Roosh responds, "It's a fair wish. And look, he comes." With some magic, she brings the woman's dead lover back to life. But the wish is not exactly as the young mermaid asks for. The Bog Roosh explains, "He was great, but in the end that beast was greater. I cannot restore heart and mind to an empty and rotted shell, but you shall have him and be united in death." So the woman's long-lost lover returns and kills her. The Bog Roosh then says, "Next!" The second eldest mermaid says, "I know my lover lives. I see him often and would stay with him, but he lives in the world above. To be with him, I would need to be like him, to have legs and breathe air. That is what I want." The Bog Roosh transforms the mermaid into a human, but then she drowns because she's under the sea currently, and humans cannot breathe under the sea, so she is dead. The Bog Roosh then says, "Next!" Bro, these wishes are not going well. The third mermaid says that her father died long ago, and a shrine was built in his name, and once his spear was housed there, but the spear was lost. The mermaid requests that the spear be returned. Although she tries to be very literal with what she wants, so there's no wish shenanigans, she says, "I only want to return it to his grave where it belongs." Alright, the Bog Roosh doesn't screw with this mermaid as much as the other two. She conjures up the spear that the mermaid wanted. The mermaid grabs the spear and swims away to return the spear to the shrine to her father. As the mermaid leaves, she takes one last look at Hellboy, and then she swims away. The Bog Roosh then turns her attention back to Hellboy. She says, "Now that's done, now it's time for you and I to attend to our business." Hellboy to this says, "Bet I'm not gonna like this very much." The Bog Roosh explains that she plans to kill and dismember Hellboy. Hellboy asks, "Any particular reason?" The Bog Roosh responds, "Nothing less than the salvation of the world." Hellboy to this rolls his eyes and says, "Shut up." The youngest mermaid with the long-lost blade returns to her father's shrine. She tells her father, "Your other daughters, my sisters, are dead. Not murdered, but killed by their own desires. I'm sorry, but look, I've brought the blade of your spear, long lost, now returned." The ghost of this mermaid's father appears to her. and he seems angry with what his daughter has done. He says, "What have you done? Honor? With this?" The father then makes reference to how his daughter attacked Hellboy, an innocent. He says, "Whatever that creature was, he never did you any harm, and he was alive. This is a grave. There is no honor here in broken tools and old bones, only in the deeds of our children. You have doomed us both. You have consigned me to hell, to burn." The daughter is sorry for what she has done. She pleads, "Father, have mercy on me." Back in the cave of the Bog Rouge, she explains to Hellboy that for the world to go on living, he must die, and that is the simple truth of it. Hellboy argues back that for the last 50 years, he's fought monsters, which makes him the good guy, and she's the monster. The Bog Rouge responds that she is haunted by a vision of the future. She sees Hellboy and his right hand of doom has been taken, and she sees that hand setting free the dragon, the Ogdru Jahad, and then she sees the whole world laid to waste. Hellboy, listening to this, says, "So you've had a dream that when I die the whole world gets destroyed and you're going to prevent that by killing me. Oh, you're a genius." The Bog Rouge has more convoluted plans for Hellboy, actually. She's going to cut him into tiny pieces and send them to the various witches he has harmed over the years. Then she's going to send Baba Yaga his left eye, as revenge for him taking hers, and then send Hecate Hellboy's empty skin. Hellboy asks, "What about you? What do you get?" The Bog Rouge answers, "Oh, I will eat your heart and drink your blood." Hellboy responds, "Nice. And what about the hand?" The Bog Rouge answers that she will feed the hand to the oldest living whale on Earth, and when that whale dies, he will drop into the pit of and disappear without a trace, and then Hellboy will be completely gone. The burden of him will be lifted from the world. Hellboy to this says, "Sounds like you've got it all figured out. Hey, you want to do this? Let's do it right now. Come on." The Bog Rouge swims away, saying she will deal with Hellboy soon. Hellboy curses her out, saying, "Hey, come back here. Take these chains off and we'll see what I know. You hear me? And get this goddamn nail out of my head." As Hellboy is left alone, he is eventually joined by the other mermaid sister. After the talking to from the ghost of her father, she decides that she will try and help Hellboy escape. Using her father's blade, she breaks the chains binding Hellboy. It is then that the Bog Rouge returns. She sees the other mermaid helping Hellboy and she gets angry, and she puts a curse on them both. She says, "Especially on you, child. There was a contract between us, assurances given and payments made." Hellboy, now free of the chains though, attacks the Bog Rouge, saying, "Leave her alone," and he punches her. Hellboy almost feels like this was too easy. The mermaid tells Hellboy, "You were too powerful for her. That's why she had you in chains." The mermaid then begs Hellboy to go. Hellboy tells the mermaid, I think I should stick around for a second just to make sure." But the mermaid then uses some of her magic to push Hellboy away and make him leave. The Bog Rouge, she then sends the two dead sisters to attack the living mermaid. The Bog Rouge also says that Hellboy, as long as he is wearing the nail in his skull, that he is hers. Her hand forged it. Only her hand can set him free. Even if Hellboy tries to run and hide, he cannot leave this place, and she will hunt him at her leisure. Hellboy is listening to this. All of a sudden, though, the ghost of that one mermaid's father arrives by Hellboy and tells him that it is a lie. He is more powerful than she is. He can take the nail out himself. Hellboy, he's happy to leave, but he wants to protect the one mermaid from the Bog Rouge. Hellboy asks the ghost, "And what about the kid?" The ghost responds, "This is her just punishment." Hellboy doesn't like that. He says, "Screw that." Hellboy goes back to attack the Bogrush. He says, "You were gonna hunt me? I'll save you the trouble." Hellboy, using the father's blade, fights and destroys the two dead mermaid sisters. Hellboy then catches up with the other living mermaid, and the two of them swim and enter a room. The room is filled with jars that have faces carved into their lids. Hellboy asks, "What is this place?" The mermaid answers, "The treasure chamber of the Bogrush. These jars contain the souls of drowned soldiers. This is where her power comes from." Hellboy tries to smash the jars and free the souls inside, but the mermaid tells Hellboy that they are trapped as long as the Bogrush lives. The Bogrush then seemingly jumps at Hellboy, and she impales herself on the blade in his hand. Hellboy comments that it's almost like she did it on purpose. The mermaid then says that the Bogrush realized she could never beat you. Therefore, she could not alter her vision of the future, and she did not want to live. She was too afraid. With the Bogrush dead, the spirits of the dead sailors fly away in the form of birds from their jars. The one mermaid comments, "Beautiful. When I die, if I ever die, all I will be is foam on a wave." No, even less than that now. Hellboy tells the mermaid, "Yeah, well, let's get out of here." The mermaid informs Hellboy, though, that she can't, because there must always be a Bogrush. When she died, she passed it on to me. Her immortality, her revenge, is my punishment. Her place is in the cave. I can never leave it now. You go. And by the hand of the Bogrush, you're free." The mermaid, now this new ceremonial Bogrush witch, removes the nail from Hellboy's horn, freeing him from being trapped here. She bids Hellboy farewell, and she says she awaits the end when the Ogdru Jihad will end the world and set her free. Until then, she will quietly wait here alone in the dark. The mermaid then hears the ghost of her father, saying, "Not alone." The mermaid, talking to the ghost of her father, questions, "Father, will you stay with me?" The ghost of her father answers, "Always, even to the end of time." Hellboy, he then floats through the ocean, eventually rising to the surface. That is the end of the Third Wish story arc. We now move on to The Island. The Island was actually published about 3 years after the Third Wish story arc. So if you were reading Hellboy comics at the time, there was about 2 or 3 years there with no Hellboy comics, and you had to read BPRD to tide you over. And then finally, after that multi-year hiatus, we have this storyline, the 2-issue The Island. And it is kind of a departure, as it is a little bit confusing and very metaphorical in what it's trying to do and setting up the mythology of Hellboy's world. By the way, this story is also set about 2 or 3 years after the Third Wish, and supposedly Hellboy was just down there in the ocean floating in the water for 2 or 3 years. Alright, let's dive into The Island. In the aftermath of the Third Wish story arc, Hellboy ends up washing up on shore, on a shore covered with beached ships. Hellboy, seeing where he is, says to himself, "Crap." Hellboy enters one of those ships and drinks with a group of sailors inside the ship. Hellboy talks with them and he tells them the story of what just happened with him, how he was in the sea and they pounded a goddamn nail into his head, right here. After talking for a bit, Hellboy hears a loud noise outside. He goes to a window to see what it is, and then when he looks back, all of the sailors are apparently long dead. Hellboy, a little frustrated, grabs a bottle of rum and then he heads outside. And once he is outside, he is confronted by the goddess of witches, Hecate. Hellboy asks, "What do you want?" Hecate answers, "Only to thank you for the killing of the Bog Rouge. She would have stolen you from me, but you are mine." Hellboy responds, "Don't mess with me, lady. I've been drinking with skeletons." Hecate and Hellboy talk for a while. Hecate wants Hellboy to join her and help usher in the end of the world. Hellboy, of course, once again refuses. Hellboy, he walks on and continues exploring the island, and he finds a castle on the island. He debates with himself what he should do. He says, "I should go back and see if those skeletons have another bottle squirreled away somewhere. Yeah, that's what I should do. Should." But Hellboy decides against his better judgment to explore the castle anyway. We now jump to some action that happened 500 years ago inside that castle. We see a group of knights preparing to execute an old man. They accuse him of spreading blasphemy. The old man, defiant, says, "Enough, enough, do it! You must, such is your fear of me and the truth." The many knights then all stab the old man with their many spears. The old man starts bleeding yellow blood. Before he dies, he tells them, "Fools, I pity you. My God is here, in me. Here is my triumph over death. This is my tomb, but in 500 years, I will rise again. This human body is too weak. In death, a greater strength will be granted to me. I will cast off my afflictions. I will put on new flesh. I will live again to finish what I have begun. I am come to give sight to the blind, to reveal to man the true order of things, and the secret history of the world." Back in the current day, Hellboy approaches the castle, and he steps onto some of this yellow blood, and a giant creature all of a sudden comes out of the blood. We learn later that this creature is an Ergo-Hem, one of the children of the Ogdru Jihad. Hellboy, he attacks the Ergo-Hem, but the monster is very strong and somehow manages to stab Hellboy with its giant claws. It impales its claw right into Hellboy. You'd think it would kill him. The monster then flings Hellboy high up into the sky. Hellboy, as he is tossed high up into the sky, goes up quite a bit, and then he comes crashing back down to Earth. He crashes right into the ceiling of that castle, breaking through the roof and falling on the ground below. Hellboy, he lands right beside the long-dead body of the old man we saw in the flashback from 500 years ago. The old man returns to life, somehow revived by Hellboy's blood. Hellboy is all of a sudden standing in a nondescript field next to Malomi, the African witch doctor, who is presumed to be dead for over 200 years. Hellboy, he says aloud, "Ah, crap, am I dead?" Malomi asks, "Do you think you are?" Hellboy answers, "I don't know. Maybe." Malomi questions, "Are you ready for it to be over?" Hellboy says, "Not yet." Malomi replies, "Well then, you should live." Hellboy, he tells Malomi, "I'm sorry I lost your bell that you gave me." Hellboy, he lost that bell that was given to him in the bottom of the ocean. But Malomi says nothing's lost, and he somehow gives Hellboy the bell back. Hellboy then awakes at the feet of the old man, the one that supposedly died 500 years ago and bled yellow blood. The old man explains how he was reborn out of Hellboy's blood. They discuss some more, and then eventually the old man is going to tell Hellboy his story, and thereby, by telling his story, also the history of the world. The man says that in the 1500s, he was just a young priest in the New World. In the New World, he was under the Aztec city of Tenochtitlan, and it was under that city he learned the secret history of the world, as inscribed on 3 golden tablets. The inscriptions were written in the first language of the first people. An old Aztec man down there in that city taught the old Spaniard how to read those tablets. They were down there for quite a while, but eventually some soldiers came and they killed the old Aztec man, and the golden tablets were broken and melted down. But by then, the old Spaniard had committed those tablets to memory. The old Spaniard priest was returned to Spain and given over to the Inquisition. There he was tortured, but eventually he was rescued by members of a secret order. Scholars, men dedicated to the preservation of ancient wisdom. They brought him to their most secret place to hide him, and there they had gathered all their treasures from the four corners of the globe: carved stone, clay pots, bronze and parchment, bits of Atlantis, Lemuria and Ur, scraps of Babylon, and him. With the destruction of the golden tablets under that Aztec city, the old Spaniard had now become the book himself. He was the living record of the true origin of all things. The old Spaniard priest then tells Hellboy some of the history on the golden tablets that he committed to memory. In the beginning of time, God created an order of spirits known as the Watchers. Of these, many of the greater spirits were sent to newborn Earth to oversee it and protect it. However, one of these spirits, the Watcher known as Annum, reached into the sky and stole God's power. He took fire out of the air and fashioned with it, out of mud, the dragon, the Ogdru Jahad. The Watchers gathered around the beast and set their seals upon it. The stolen fire was put into it. Still, it was without life. Until night, and the darkness entered into it, and gave to it, and to all its parts, function and purpose, and caused it to deliver out of itself the first living creatures on Earth, the 369 Ogdru Hem. And the Watchers were so filled with horror at the sight of the Ogdru Hem that they went to war against them and rained lightning down upon them and upon the whole surface of the earth, until only the Ogdru Jahad remained. Then that Watcher, Annum, that had dared to create them and dared to raise his hand again to imprison them and hurl them into the abyss. Then all the Watchers turned against that one for fear of him and all that had come to pass. They came down upon him and struck him to pieces, and saw all those pieces consumed, except one, his right hand. Later on, the first men came to Earth, the Golden People. They built cities in Hyperborea, and their sacred object was that Watcher's hand, preserved in amber and closed in a golden bowl. Later, a King Thoth came, and he had a statue made, and that hand put into it, and there it stood for 10,000 years in his garden, all through the Golden Age. But all things end. Hyperborea eventually fell due to the actions of the Black Goddess, and the statue was destroyed, but the right hand remained. Hellboy, he thinks this is all a little crazy. He says, "I don't believe it." The Spaniard tells Hellboy, "You do." Hellboy replies, "Shut up." This right hand that the old Spaniard is talking about of this Watcher, Annum, is supposedly the same one that is Hellboy's right hand of doom. The old Spaniard then tells Hellboy, "I was hidden here to wait the day till mankind would be ready to hear my message. Now is that day." The Watchers won their war against the Ogdru Hem. The Ogdru Hem were defeated, some torn from their bodies and cast out on the wind, some entombed in the earth, but they all still live. Mankind must be made to see the signs of the times. They are stirring. The Ogdru Hem will wake and reclaim the earth. They will rule until the Ogdru Jahad come again. The old Spaniard then talks of the frogmen. He says, "Already a new final race of man is being born, and they know the gods. They will take strength from the Ogdru Hem in the air to raise the Ogdru Hem out of the ground. Mankind must be made ready make new idols to the spider and the fly, paint altars red, or have the new race replace the old. Hellboy, listening to all this stuff from this old Spaniard, doesn't believe the half of it. He tells him, "You're fooling yourself if you think people are gonna roll over and start praying to monsters." The old Spaniard replies, "Everything I have said will come to pass. It is the truth, as proven by the miracle of my blood." The old man then reveals that the monster Hellboy was fighting outside was called an Urgu-hem, and it was born out of this old Spaniard's blood. The old Spaniard, he continues his tale, but he starts seemingly growing a little bit more unhinged as he's talking. He says, "As the Sadu-hem was born out of the blood at Gorinium, so Urgu-hem was reborn here out of my blood, a testament to the power of my faith, proof so that all will believe." Hellboy, hearing this, says, "Or else?" The Spaniard continues, "If they will not see, I will cut out their eyes and make them see. I love the human race and would be its savior. Let the people come unto me, and at least some of them will live." Hellboy, seeing where this is going, says, "All right, here we go." The Spaniard continues, "But I would rather destroy my people than see them suffer under a plague of frogs." Hellboy, hearing this, says, "I knew it." The Spaniard starts transforming into a large, demonic creature. Hellboy's had enough. He says, "I knew it!" And he starts punching and beating the Spaniard. As Hellboy is fighting this Spaniard, Malhomi is watching in the distance. The Spaniard, surprised that Hellboy was able to best him, says, "Impossible! Some other power is at work here. What is it?" We see that Hellboy has that bell in his hands, the one that Malhomi gave him. Hellboy punches the old Spaniard, now demon, again, hitting him back further. He tells him, "Now stay down. You know, pal, I don't think you're a bad guy. I think you meant well, but look at you. It's the blood. Poor bastard. You're wearing the wrong guy's blood." The demonic creature then hits Hellboy back, and Hellboy goes flying right out of the castle across the land. Malhomi, now joined by Sir Edward Grey, are both watching Hellboy in the distance. As Hellboy is now outside, the Urgu-hem wants to try and finish off Hellboy for good. Hellboy baits the Urgu-hem to try and lunge at him. Hellboy remarks, Yeah, come and get me, idiot." There was some sort of broken mast of a ship there sticking out of the ground. Hellboy manages to dive under some water and gunk, and the Urgu-hem leaps into the air and it crashes down on the broken ship mast and dies. With the Urgu-hem dead, the old Spaniard seems to now revert to a skeleton and bones, and the ghosts of the old priest and knights there that executed the old Spaniard hundreds of years ago, they now condemn the long dead man to hell. The old Spaniard now finally rests and dies. Hellboy, in the aftermath of all this madness, says to himself, "Well, that was something." Hellboy then makes his way across the island, and he eventually finds a small boat, and he sets sail and leaves. And as he is sailing away, Malhomi and Sir Edward Grey discuss. Sir Edward Grey asks, "Do you know what you've done?" Malhomi answers, "What is life without risk? Now, I'm ready to go with you. I will miss the grass and the animals, for I know there will be no returning." Sir Edward Grey to this responds, "Things will be worse now. Do you feel it?" Malhomi, almost speaking in riddles, says, "I smell the smoke. The fire cannot be far behind." Also, elsewhere in the distance, Hecate also looks on from the shore. We now have a short epilogue. An old woman, who we will learn in future storylines is a old fairy queen named Queen Mab, is talking to Grugach. Grugach was a character we met in the Corpse short story. In that story, he was bested by Hellboy and devoured whole by a beast named Grom. Yet somehow he now survives, and he has almost taken on the body of this Grom. Grugach asks Queen Mab, "Tell me Hellboy's drowned, or at least prisoner in some fish's belly?" Queen Mab explains that Hellboy lives and is sailing for England. Grugach, who still holds his desire for some revenge on Hellboy, says that he must be stopped. He asks where are the witches of Earth. Queen Mab says the witches are waiting on word from their queen, Hecate. Grugach asks about Hellboy himself. He wants to know more. Queen Mab explains that his father was a demon and his mother a witch. He was delivered into hell but born again on Earth, and all these years he has tried to live a man's life, but he is not a man, and now with his death he finally knows. He feels the weight of his burden. He has seen the face of the creature he was meant to be. Whatever he is now, Grugach, you cannot beat him. Grugach is defiant. He says, "I can. He mocked me. He burned me. Because of him I wear this pig body." Grugach expresses his deep desire for revenge. Queen Mab warns him, though, to be careful what he begins. This will echo down the years to the ending of us all. Grugach does not care. He says, "If there must be an end, let it be loud and let it be bloody. Better to burn than to wither away in the dark." Grugach, even if it means the end he wants, war. And with this, we end the island story arc. The next story in this omnibus is called Into the Silent Sea. It was actually published 12 years later in the year 2017. So in terms of publication order, this was not published until much later, but chronologically speaking, it is what follows the island. So let's dive into it. Into the Silent Sea. Hellboy sets sail on a small boat to leave the island that he was on last story arc. He sails away from land and gets deeper into the ocean, and then he comes across a ghost ship. The ghost ship closes in on him, and Hellboy realizes that they're probably going to take him prisoner. He comments to himself, "Son of a..." Next, we cut to Hellboy on that boat, tied in chains to the mast. The captain then addresses his men in front of Hellboy and says, "Gather around, shipmates, and witness what ye have signed on for." A concerned sailor says, "Lordy, Captain, what manner of creature might this be?" The captain responds, "It's not for us to say, lad. Just remember he'll fetch good coin in your purse upon our return home." Another sailor confronts the captain, saying, "No good will come from such unholy cargo." The captain argues with the one sailor that was disagreeing with him, and the captain shoots that sailor dead. The captain then addresses his men, saying, "There's only one captain on board the Rebecca." The Rebecca is the name of their ship. The captain continues, "Take that mutineer's carcass below to be prepared for burial, and get this damn deck cleaned up." As most of the sailors clear out to attend to their duties, the captain talks with Hellboy. Hellboy learns that the captain wishes to sell Hellboy to the circus. The captain tells Hellboy the public will pay a premium to see such a talking abomination. Hellboy, after his conversation with the captain and looking around at the ship, he asks the captain, "Hey pal, stupid question, but what year do you think it is?" The captain just answers with a question, saying, "What year do you think it is?" Hellboy answers, "Well, let's see, this looks like a 19th century sailing ship, although for some reason it doesn't look like you have any sails." The captain tells Hellboy, "Never you mind about that." Much later on, Hellboy is very tired and dehydrated from being in the sun all day. Eventually, a small boy named William, who's on the ship, goes over to Hellboy and spoon feeds him some water to drink. The boy warns Hellboy, "Hurry, before she sees us." Hellboy thanks the boy for the water and has a drink. He then asks the boy, "Tell me about this ship. What is it, and it's called the Rebecca?" William answers, "The hands are a superstitious lot, sir. Some say you're a sailor from the southern latitudes and you got red probably from chewing beetle nut. Others think you're a pig iron Bob. They heard he was born with a tail, so you must be him. But, old Tom's dead set against you. He says you're Satan himself come to pay them all a visit. Hellboy asks the boy if he's scared of him. The boy answers, "Nah, I'm not scared of you. Neither is my dog either, but the lady on board, even the skipper figures she's the real devil." This mysterious woman that the boy was referring to, the supposed real devil. She then joins Hellboy and William where they are on the ship, and she says, "The devil is a myth. There is no place for devils or myths in modern thought." She then tells Hellboy, "It might interest you to know that the Rebecca is under my command. If I set you free, will you attempt to escape?" Hellboy answers, "Lady, where am I gonna go?" The mysterious lady of the ship then tells Hellboy about some of their recent adventures. She says, "You're a scientific curiosity, sir, but I have a feeling you're no dumb beast. And that's more than can be said for this crew of mine. Have you by any chance heard of the lost city of Tunangar?" The lady then explains that this lost city of Tunangar was one of 7 outpost cities of the ancient Hyperboreans, who were the first race of man. Well, the lady and some of her associates, they discovered one of these ancient cities, and they found an old dead, beastly skeleton down there in that city. They brought the skeleton with them, and then they used some of their technology to talk with it from beyond the grave, and they heard the creature say to them, "I lived in a time when our king was our god. The true nature of all things was a secret only to him. We were ignorant, and most were content to be so, but not all. Some believed that ignorance made them slaves. They called, and the serpent answered. The serpent Heka Emin Ra." The skeleton was referring to the black goddess, Hecate, the one that corrupted the Hyperboreans, leading to their downfall. The skeleton continued, "She came to open our eyes and set men free, but knowledge is not a blessing. For some it is a power, for others a curse. It was our ruin. I will say no more. Give me back to the dark." So Hellboy, he hears this story from this lady on this ship, and he tells her, "Well, yeah, you listen to a talking snake and there's gonna be trouble." The lady is utterly fascinated with what happened, though. She says, No, knowledge can never be a curse. Imagine if that serpent whispered into the ear of Newton or even myself." Hellboy says, "It'd be trouble." The lady answers, "We shall see, for I believe the serpent still lives." Just as the woman says that, below deck, that one sailor that the captain shot and killed earlier, well, somehow he arises from the dead. His skin is now looking all green and ghoulish. One of the other sailors that was building a coffin for the man says, "Blimey, you gave me a fright. You know, you look a little strange with your head stoved in like that." All of a sudden, that man that arose from the dead attacks the other sailor and kills him. And then the man starts going on a rampage through the ship. Back to Hellboy on the deck. He's continuing to talk to that lady. He warns her, "Trust me, I know about this kind of stuff. It'll be a whole lot better for everybody if you just turn this boat around and rowed for home." But the lady on the ship, she doesn't want to do this. She thinks she is on the verge of solving the greatest mysteries since the dawn of mankind, and he wants to seek out this Hecate, no matter where her journey takes her. A few moments later, that ghoul that rose from the dead, he crashes through the bottom of the deck. Many sailors aboard attempt to kill the man, but the ghoul is immensely strong and he tosses them all about. In the confusion, the key to unlock the chains Hellboy is tied in falls to the ground. Hellboy tells the boy William to get the keys and unlock his chains. The boy does so. With Hellboy finally free, he attacks the ghoul. Hellboy, he feeds the ghoul a few punches, and he eventually tosses the ghoul overboard into the water. The captain and the other sailors appreciate Hellboy's help. It is no time to rest, though. All of a sudden, their ship starts getting rocked by huge waves. The ship eventually crashes into some rocks. And then a whole bunch of sea monsters start moving their way towards the ship, till eventually the entire ship has been overcome by them from all directions. The sailors are trying to fend them off, Hellboy's trying to fend them off. Hellboy comments to himself, "If this is a dream, I wouldn't mind waking up right about now." Hellboy, he's still trying to fight all these sea creatures of every single variety you can imagine off, but he is struggling. The lady of the ship tells the captain, "Captain, must I issue all the commands? Rouse your crew, light the beacon." The captain gets pulled overboard by a sea creature though. The lady of the ship, by herself then, lights some sort of beacon device they have aboard. While she is doing that ghoul that Hellboy tossed overboard earlier, well, he has somehow climbed back aboard the ship. So Hellboy has to throw a harpoon into him to finish him off for good. The lady of the ship has now lit the beacon, and a giant light is shining into the sky. And whatever this beacon was, it somehow has summoned this Heka Emin-Ra that looks to be in the form of a giant snake almost mixed with a sea creature. It sprouts out of the ocean, shooting up high into the sky. It wraps itself around the ship. The lady aboard, she says, excitedly, "See, she comes! Heka Emin-Ra, the serpent from the beginning of the world. See, I am not afraid. I am your friend." The little boy William was with Hellboy, and he asks him, "What is she doing?" Hellboy answers, "She's making a really big mistake. Lady, come on, don't do this." The lady on the ship keeps speaking, "I'm not afraid. I know what you are, and why you're here, and what you have to offer. Please open my eyes. I want to understand. I want the truth." "Oh, no. No, wait. You're not what I want." Whatever this lady thought she was gonna summon to help her, well, it did not come to help her. This serpent beast that came out of the ocean, it grabs the lady, sucks her away, pulls her into the air, and then pulls her down into the bottom of the ocean. She's dead. Hellboy tells William, "Well, I warned her." The ship smashes into more rocks and it eventually turns sideways. A lot of the sea creatures start leaving. It seems like all the horrors that were plaguing the ship might finally be over though. Hellboy says to William, "All in all, that could have gone a whole lot worse." William questions, "Is it really over?" Hellboy answers, "Looks like it." Hellboy then asks the other sailors, "What do you guys think?" And the other sailors then decompose and all die. Even little William that was on Hellboy's shoulders. He turns into a skeleton too and passes on. And even Hellboy himself seems to disintegrate. And then turn to darkness. Everything goes black, and then eventually Hellboy wakes up. It was all just a dream. Or was it? Who knows? Hellboy is continuing to sail on the very small little ship he originally left the island with. And as he's sailing, he passes by the shipwreck of the Rebecca, which may have been here for over 100 years. Hellboy, he passes by that ship and he continues sailing onward. And that is the end of Into the Silent Sea. Alright, so that was the conclusion of the Strange Places Omnibus. Well, let me go through my thoughts on the story arcs in this one. I thought the Third Wish story arc was really fun. It was this fairy tale. I like the setting of it being under the sea. This Bog Rouge witch and these three mermaids was an intriguing side plot. I like that this Bog Rouge is messing with these mermaids and twisting their wishes and making them die because of what they wished. That was cool. And then Hellboy battling the Bog Rouge with the help of the mermaid and this ghost was really amusing. So all in all, that was a really fun story arc. Then we had the Island story arc, which I thought was really intriguing, although I was a little confused by various parts of it. It was a more abstract story. It almost felt like a dream at times. What I did love about it was getting a lot of that lore background information that we've been really wanting. So we learn a lot more about the history of the Ogdru Jahad and the Ogdru Hem. And we learn about these Watchers and about Hellboy's right hand of doom and why it is so important. So all that was really great. I'm a little confused by various aspects of the story, like this old Spaniard at one point turning into a demon, and how exactly the rules behind that one monster that sort of popped out of this yellow blood worked, and why there was so much yellow blood. And then near the end of the story arc, we had this Malhomi and the Sir Edward Grey arguing about what just happened. And I wasn't really following all of that. So there are parts of the island I wish were more straightforward. But on the whole, I still thought it was very intriguing, and we did learn a lot to take forward into future story arcs. The last story arc in this volume, Into the Silent Sea, was not really important for the overall Hellboy story, but it was a nice little side story with some amazing art by Gary Gianni. I thought the artwork was beautiful in this. The sea monsters and the overall boat and the old-timey look of it was just great. Yeah, fun tale, but not so important, but still a good time. So on the whole, I'm going to give these three story arcs an 8 out of 10. Still really amusing and really interesting to see where we're going to go from here. Thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll be back in the future with the next Hellboy story arc, which is going to be called Darkness Calls. So I will see you all then there for that.